And so I thank you for being here, and that's why we do the gift. We do need help from you in other ways, and I was going to ask someone if they would help me upload our recordings of our meetings to our new YouTube page, because a lot of people out there are searching and they can find it. And Serena texted me this morning and said she wanted to volunteer to help me. And I mean to tell you, it was a prayer. I was asking for that, and it got answered. So I thank Serena for doing that. And by the way, Serena does a meditation every month, free. And I've attended several of them and would want to attend the next 3 or 4, but I've got conflicts. But go to her website, serenabaptist.com, and you will see down at the bottom some free meditation. And our speaker today is going to do a little meditation with us. And as we're learning in this organization, and that is what we're here for, is to learn. We are learning that meditation really can calm us and help us feel that love that our soul has in us. So hopefully more of you are trying to learn how to meditate. It is hard. I'm not the best at it, and Serena, I think, admitted that when she started trying to meditate, it was hard because our little brains are going, da, 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 trying to distract us. And so with a guided meditation with Serena or others, I think you can do better. It will become easier for you. Okay, let me get back to my notes. I don't want to forget anything this time. Last time I did. So we do need help with sharing the love and telling people about our organization. We also need, and I don't like to bring this up, I really don't, a little bit of help with donations. Some of you have, and always are, generous. We do need a little bit because Zoom has gone up on us. Our website people that host us have gone up. So the expenses have just gone up. And I know that it's everywhere. Our food has gone up, everything has gone up. So we're trying to be good stewards of the money that you're donating. And fortunately, our speakers don't charge us anything. And this room is free to us. And I'm so fortunate. I feel very fortunate for that. Let's see. Oh, Alyssa Rushton. She was our speaker in March. I sent you 4 courses, free courses, and they're for gift to you. So be sure and take advantage of those. I've taken 2 of those courses out of the 4. They're excellent. They're just online courses. You just click on the link and there you go. It's recorded, pre-recorded. So be sure and do that at your leisure sometime. If you didn't get it or you lost it, send me an email and I'll send it to you again, okay? And now it's right at that time where I am so privileged to meet our speaker, because I've had a phone kind of relationship with Reverend Richard Dingus, and I call him Dick, and I think a lot of his friends do, but I've had this great relationship with him over the phone, and this is the first time that I'm actually able to see him and we're able to talk. So I'm thrilled that he's here. He is the Virginia Beach SCIANDS facilitator. So he's like a facilitator, but in Virginia Beach. But he's been doing it for 20 years instead of 3 years. He's also a pastor. He's been a pastor for 25 years. He has a really wonderful knowledge of the Bible. And then he's also gathered all this spiritual knowledge through the near-death experiencers that he's had at his meetings. So he has a really great way of pulling the Bible and our spiritual knowledge together. And for that reason, I wanted him to speak to you today, because I don't know about you, but I have some Christian friends, and they sometimes they don't say it directly to me, but they do kind of imply, well, how can you, is this new age you're doing? They'll say things like that. Is this new age you're doing? What is this? What is this that you're getting yourself into? It's more out of concern, I'm sure. But if it's not biblical, everything biblical, then they're questioning the validity of it. And as all of you, I think, in here have realized and are learning, you know, there's much more to this spiritual journey and our path than just being knowledgeable of what was in the Bible. And believe me, I go to church, you know, on a weekly basis, a Catholic church, and I'm learning from the Catholic Church. And I think it's a wonderful way to reach God, if that's what you're wanting to do. I really do. And so with that being said, we are non-denominational in this organization. We are just spiritual beings wanting to learn more, and that is our purpose for being here today. And so I think that Dick Dingus is going to share some very interesting information with you, and I want to give him as much time as possible. I also sent you the article, Earth Changes, that he wrote. That it's quite involved, but I want you to read that. It's so good. If you didn't get it for some reason, be sure and email me, and I'll make sure you get it. Dick may address some of that, and if you got to read it and you have some questions, be sure and ask him the questions at, you know, at the end of this topic. So, Dick, click on that.
He's here.
He's here.
All right, can you hear me okay?
I did, yeah.
Can you see me okay? Or do I need to adjust
You're a
my
little
camera?
low.
Can you see me okay?
We can see you great. We can see you great. We just need the volume up a little bit.
Okay, I think you'll have to turn the volume up on your end.
That is, yes, and you did a good job right there on your end.
All right, I will speak just like this so that you can hear me well.
Okay.
I'm so happy to be able to present to you today.
We can hear you great now. We're hearing you loud and clear. Go ahead.
The mission of SCIANDS and local groups is to make known what can be learned from near-death experiences. And I thank Deb for giving me the opportunity to share today what I have learned. I put it into an article that's on our website of Virginia Beach Friends of SCIANDS. It's www.vbiands.com on the research button. It's what, you know, near-death experience and what we can learn from it. But I want to summarize that and add some other things, because I wrote that article about 10 years ago. Right now, sharing about near-death experience is highly important because it's transformational. The truth is that not only are near-death experiencers changed, but so are those who hear their stories. Now, I am not a near-death experiencer. Instead, I had a spiritually transformative experience. It happened when I was in high school. And I'll tell you more about that in this talk. But I have been studying near-death experiences for over 20 years. And today I would like to share a dozen concepts that I believe are true from my study. The first one is, there is more to life than our experience on Earth. There's another realm characterized by love, peace, and joy. This confirms what we learned from the Bible. But near-death experience informs us of much more that is not in the Bible. For example, why do we come here? People who have had near-death experiences tell us that they learned that they got bored in the spiritual realm. It's all unconditional love there. You can only take that for so long, and then you want to change. So we come to earth or go to other realms for excitement, for amusement, for fun, for a learning experience. It's like going to an amusement park or a horror movie. We enjoy the experience for a short time, and then we leave the theater, or we go home from the amusement park. Those who come to earth go back to their home in spirit. That's where we came from. Earth has been described as a very difficult and painful realm, perhaps the most difficult in the universe. But it's important to know that it's only temporary. However, what we gain here lasts forever. From the heavenly perspective, the experience is worth the suffering, or we never would have come. One near-death experiencer had a vision of people in heaven standing in line, waiting to get aboard trains to come to earth. People can't wait to get here. It's such an important place to come. Another aspect of this truth is that loving relationships never end. Someone close to us may die, but that person is only out of sight, is not really dead. It's like a drama performed on stage. An actor dies and is carried off the stage, but is not dead. He or she is backstage watching the rest of the show. And then after the last act, all the actors gather and they say, "Wasn't that great?" And they ask, "What are we going to do next?" And that's the way life is, according to near-death experiencers. The second thing I learned is that a study of near-death experiences teaches us that God lives in us. Our experience here is God's experience. A common way that it's expressed is God lives in, through, and as us. In fact, our experience here is essential for God to exist. This is a mind-blowing concept, the most profound concept I have ever encountered in my life. The concept is that for God to be infinite, God also has to be finite. The two seem contradictory. How can the finite be infinite, or the infinite be finite? And the answer is God experiences the finite through, in, and as us. That's what Sandy Toronto learned in her near-death experience. She also learned that what we do here affects the evolution of humankind and the expansion of the universe. Oh, I asked her to expand on those concepts, and just to think about them is mind-blowing. So each of us is an essential part of the whole, a piece of the puzzle, and our life here counts for the completion of that puzzle. The whole will not be complete until each one of us completes our part. That's how Nancy Clark worded what she learned in her near-death experience. A related truth is that we are children of God. God's spiritual DNA is at the core of our being. Mary Sparrow Dancer met a being of light. She was taken on a tour. She entered the most beautiful cathedral. She felt the presence of God and of angels. She asked, "Where are we?" the being said, "Your DNA." She writes of this in her book, Love Song of the Universe. The third thing I learned in my study of near-death experience is that we have help. We are not alone. Beings who have been through this earthly experience are standing by, ready to guide us, to teach us, and to heal us upon request. These would include angels, guides, also Jesus. However, in order for us to access their help or to receive it, we have to ask. A young woman was on drugs. She was hitchhiking. She got in a semi-trailer that stopped to pick her up. She asked if she could rest in the sleeper compartment. She got approval for that, and she was lying in the sleeper compartment and she died. She said that while she was dying, it felt like her life was rolling up like a window shade. She entered into a dark place. She was afraid. She called, "Mom," but nothing happened. She said, "Anyone, help me." And then, in the distance, she saw a light coming from a great distance towards her. And the light came and stood next to her and appeared as a man. She said, "Who are you?" And the man said, "I'm Jesus, the Christ." She asked, "Why did you allow all those bad things to happen to me as I was growing up?" And he said, "I gave humankind free will." And then she asked, "Why didn't you help me?" He answered, "You didn't ask." Jesus went through this human experience, and he's available to help us if we simply ask. In the book of to the Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 14 and following, Jesus is described as the great high priest. A priest is someone who represents people before God. We just need to ask. He said, "Ask and you shall receive." Jesus also showed this young woman the effectiveness of the cross. He showed her a timeline that represented human history. And in the middle of the timeline, there were red lines, vertical, cutting the transgressing or going across the timeline. And he explained that those timelines were the intervention of his life and death. And that happened in order for humankind to be able to get from the beginning to the end. That was one of the important answers I needed to understand in order for me to accept the validity of near-death experiences. A fourth concept that I learned from near-death experience is the veil. There's a subtle dividing barrier between earth and the heavenly realms. Now, most people are unaware of it. But when a person has a near-death experience, it makes a hole in the veil, an opening. There's a vague Bible reference to this hole or the veil. At the death of Jesus, the veil was rent. This refers to the veil in the temple. It separated the Holy of Holies from the holy place. The Holy of Holies was thought of as the place where the presence of God existed. So renting the veil means gaining access to God. For a near-death experiencer, this access is love. That's what they experience. And they experience expanded consciousness as a result of it. Recently, I became a practitioner of quantum healing hypnosis technique. And one of the key concepts in that practice is that everything exists in the here and now. And a related truth is that the veil is thinning. People are able to access everything in the universe through expanded consciousness, which is one of the side effects or after effects of near-death experience. The fifth thing I learned is that near-death experiencers are transformed. They go through the veil. Blue Joy is the name of a man. He was involved in a truck accident. He was driving a pickup truck, which was smashed in an accident, and he died. And he was above the scene, and he was moving toward the veil. And he almost went through the veil himself, but stopped partway through. Only his leg went through the veil, and he observed it. He returned to his body, and he recovered from the accident. But he retained the energy that he received from having opened the veil and having gone partially through it. His life was changed. Near-death experiencers are immersed in the energy of the spiritual realm. They experience infinite love and knowledge, and then they return with that energy. Some people don't understand how that could feel. It's like jumping in a swimming pool if you don't know what is water. And the person who's jumped in and got wet comes and tells people, this is what it was like. But nobody understands that because they've never done it themselves. But the hole remains open for the energy to continue to come into the life of that person. So lives are changed. They become more intuitive. They become more sensitive to spirit. That's what happened to Bill Taylor. The love and the knowledge fade, but the memory of them does not. He says that when he was out of body in his near-death experience, he understood how the universe works, both the time-space realm and the spiritual realms. It was all perfectly clear to him. But after he came back, he lost the memory of all those details. He remembered that he once knew it all, but he no longer retained all that knowledge. And he was changed by the experience, and so are other near-death experiencers. It's as if their nervous systems were rewired for high-power energy. Many of them cannot wear wristwatches. When they go under streetlights, the lights will go off. They can't work at computers because the computers will malfunction. They become psychic. They can see energy. They gain the ability to heal. They are reoriented away from earthly values of money and fame and power to develop their true identity as children of God, who is love. They simply seek to be helpful. I have learned that when a person has a transformational experience, such as a near-death experience, it unlocks their potential to be creative. They seek to develop gifts for use in helping others. Rebecca Castle had such an experience. She developed the gifts of being a healer and a channeler for angels. And so I encourage anyone who has had a near-death experience and hasn't been talking about it to start talking about it. Tell the experience, because hearers will be changed. The goal is to change the world. And that's why I've been active in Virginia Beach Friends of IANDS for over 20 years. We are just one of some 60 local IANDS groups around the world. I'm the person who's primarily responsible for gaining speakers for our group. This is often a difficult task, and I decided I would be intentional and work on it to gain a list of speakers. I realized also that there are other leaders of other groups who are looking for speakers. So I worked together with Janet Tarantino to develop what's called the Speakers Bureau Directory. It has about 70 speakers in it, and it's distributed to about 90 group leaders around the world. I am happy when I am busy and productive to make a difference. And when people ask me how I am, I answer, I am well, busy, productive, and happy. And this presentation to you is one of those times in which I am busy. And I was productive to prepare it, and it made me happy and makes me happy now. I started my spiritual journey in high school. I grew up lonely and longing for inner closeness. In the 10th grade at MacArthur High School in West Hollywood, Florida, that was in 1960, an upperclassman named Russ Becker and stopped me on the sidewalk behind the building and invited me to ask Jesus to come into my life. He said that asking Jesus to come into my life was my guarantee of going to heaven. This was a new concept to me, but I said, okay, let's do it. So I prayed with Russ and asked Jesus into my life. It wasn't long after that I had a spiritually transformative experience at a Youth for Christ rally at a church in West Hollywood, Florida. Jerry Burleson, the leader of our group, was on stage singing a song, and I was sitting by myself in the audience. And all of a sudden, I felt a wave of loving energy encompass me. I had never experienced anything like it in my life. And this flooded me with feelings of joy and happiness. And the feeling lasted for months. I felt like I was walking on air. I had a constant smile on my face. I was happy as I had never experienced it before in my life. During this time, I was part of a Youth for Christ group at that school, and I found friendly and supportive peers, unlike anyone else I had found in my previous years. One of those peers was Art Totman. Art invited me to be part of his church, the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church in West Hollywood, Florida. And I enjoyed wonderful relationships with those parishioners. His family also welcomed me, and I had meals with them. I felt valued and loved. My life was filled with wonderful relationships, and I wanted to share it. I wanted to become a pastor, so I pursued that course, and I did become a pastor in 1978, and I served in the United Church of Christ for 26 years. Over that time, I often wanted to share what I had learned from near-death experiences, but churches generally are not open to anything new. My assessment is that many churches today are operating in survival mode. They're struggling to sustain their way of life, and they're not interested in learning anything new. And so I resigned in conflict about 18 or 20 years ago. I guess it was 20 years ago, 2004. And I became a hospice chaplain. I served as a hospice chaplain for 15 years. I felt I had something to share because I had a knowledge of what happens in near-death experience. And I shared with many of my clients and their families that there's hope for life beyond. My assessment is that the church had a mission to spread that message, but the church got stuck. And so I believe and feel that near-death experiencers are going to fulfill that mission to share that life continues and much more about God. I retired about 7 years ago. And then after a couple of years of sorting things out at my home, I started a home church. It's a model for a church that exists in a private home, and I called it Strangers No More. It's a model for churches with large buildings but dwindling congregations. And the expense of upkeep for the church is more than that small congregation can afford. So what can a church like that do? They might have to sell their building. Do they disband? No. They can follow the model for Strangers No More, which has been successful now for over 2 years. We are a spiritual exploration and growth church, or group. We build community. We share knowledge. We have programs of things that are normally not experienced in a church, such as programs talking about healing, spiritual development, even reincarnation, extraterrestrial life, the purpose of life, near-death experience. We meet at 6 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday evenings for dinner. And then at 7:30, we have a Zoom call, and all are welcome to join us for a Zoom meeting. After brief introductions, there's an opportunity for everybody to share, something that often does not happen in a church. And then we have our program, a speaker or a discussion on one of those topics. If you'd like to participate in our Zoom meetings, you can check in with me by sending me your email address, and I'll send you the Zoom link. My email is richardadinges, D-I-N-G-E-S, @AOL.com. So overall, I am doing my part. I'm fitting my piece into the puzzle, and I am happy doing it. The sixth thing I have learned in my study of near-death experiences is that we have a mission. I mentioned this before. I believe near-death experiences are working in that mission. During my tenure in Virginia Beach Friends of SCIANDS, I've met amazing people, and I've heard amazing stories. But the main message has been that we are to show our true identity as children of God. God is love, and that means that we as children of God are also love. We have been begotten by our heavenly parent, and we can fulfill our mission by extending love. We can do it to the person next to us, and it will have the ripple effect. So in the words of Jesus, let your light shine. Tell your story, and it will be successful to change the world. That's what Howard Storm was told in his conversation with Jesus during his near-death experience. You could read about it or view it because there are many videos of Howard Storm on the internet. And he also wrote a book, My Descent into Hell and Back. In my study of near-death experience, I learned the seventh concept is the best description of God. Bill Taylor had it. He saw God as a globe of brilliant light, and in the presence of this brilliant light, he felt great love. And so Bill is the first person who spoke to me about this definition, that God is the love light, love-light. It's like two sides of the same coin. The eighth concept I learned is that everything is made of this love light. And that's what Mary Dioma saw in her near-death experience. She saw everything glowing. In fact, she said everything is made of this love light. Near-death experiencers see it. Everything has a glow to it. And according to Edgar Cayce, everything is a manifestation of God, which is just saying the same thing. The ninth concept I learned is that we are all connected. Near-death experiencers see filaments of light that connect with Source and with each other, and energy travels on these filaments. That's what Reese Manley saw in his near-death experience. He was connected to the Source and to all the other parts of the One. This is similar to a statement in the Bible. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these brothers of mine, said Jesus, ye have done it unto me. And love your neighbor as yourself, he said. And the truth is, you'll love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself. The 10th concept I learned from my study of near-death experience is about the power of the mind. One aspect of this is that prayer generates energy. Near-death experiencers can see the energy of prayer. Betty Eady describes what she saw when she was out of her body in her book, Embraced by the Light. She saw people praying for her. Another near-death experiencer was involved in an automobile wreck and saw the prayer of someone else, an observer, for her as she was involved in that wreck. The prayer energy was coming to her like light from a flashlight. Another aspect of this truth, the power of the mind, is that all things are possible with God. And this is a key concept from quantum healing hypnosis technique. Nothing is impossible except what you think is impossible. You are a child of God, a fractal of God, and you are not limited. And the power, the creative power that God has given to you is effective to create your reality. In fact, your mind is creating constantly whenever you are thinking and whatever you are thinking. So we all need to be advised to use it constructively, to guard against creating negative realities. Edgar Cayce made the statement that thoughts are things. So we want to create using these levels of energy. First, the intent. The next level of energy is to think about it. And the next level is to speak. And then we can act. And each one of these has its own level of energy. And when we visualize, we will manifest our new reality. PMH Atwater had 3 near-death experiencers in 1977. She had studied somewhat about near-death experiencers, and she had in mind the concept that the mind is creative. And so she tested this. She decided that she would create a house. She wanted a colonial-style house with pillars in front. And when she thought of it, the house appeared. And then she said she wanted to do something more difficult. She would try to create a tree. And when she thought of it, the tree appeared. And she went on to create houses and a whole neighborhood. And then down one of the streets of that neighborhood, she saw Jesus coming to her, and they had a conversation. and she dissolved the whole neighborhood, but her whole life was changed after that. The mind is creative, and the same creative effect happens on earth, but only over time, because this is a space-time realm, but it happens just as surely. The 11th truth that I gained from near-death experience is that we are to be positive, to keep our vibration high. We should not allow negative energy to take hold of our minds. We should separate from it, avoid it, avoid negative people, avoid negative news, avoid negative thoughts. Don't listen to the vitriol of the political ads. The worst feeling and thought is fear. We are reminded of that scripture from 1 John 4:18, perfect love casts out fear. One of my favorite verses in my Youth for Christ years was from Isaiah 26:3. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. One of the things we learn from near-death experiences to remain positive is to spend as much time as possible in nature. This is a way to avoid stress and the negative effects of stress. To know that we are being upheld with a continuous flow of unconditional love. God, who is love, who is at the core of our being, sustains our life moment by moment. And the 12th thing I have learned from my study of near-death experience is about earth changes. Deb mentioned that you received my sermon and report. It had some 40 pages of research in it. The truth from near-death experiences is that we will be going through some turbulence, and this has already started. I think the latest sign might be the earthquake and volcano in eastern Russia. Near-death experiencers have been speaking about earth changes for some time. On the internet recently, there are videos from Vinnie Tolman, Vinney Tolman. Particularly in part 2, he talks about earth changes that are coming upon us soon. Deb mentioned that things are going to become chaotic in the next few months. I would be interested to hear more about that. But in the meantime, we can keep our mind on God. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. And from Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength, a tested help in times of trouble. And so we need not fear, even if the world blows up and the mountains crumble into the sea. Now, this would be a good place to stop for questions. I wonder if anyone has something to ask or a comment on anything I have said today.
Dick, I think what I meant by, to explain what I meant about, y'all,
I cannot hear you. Speak up, please.
let me, everyone else has to come to the microphone. I will repeat what you have said. Dick, I think what I was meaning is things may get chaotic in the next several months with the election and different things happening. And we just need to be, I think, aware of that so that we can keep our positive attitude and keep our mind focused on the end, on the prize, and that we know that that God has our back and that we have a future with him. So that's what I was meaning.
Okay.
We're prepared mentally for what is going to happen. We are just better prepared. I think your talk today was just perfect, and particularly for one of our guests today, Mark, because he did have he thinks he may have had a near-death experience when he was younger. And as PMH Atwater will maybe explain in her talk in September, she's coming in September, she says that it sometimes takes children who have had a near-death experience years to process that, and adults as well. It takes them even longer sometimes to process what they experience. And then we have some people here today, like Sandy, that has had a near-death experience and has, in fact, has healing capabilities now that she may not have had prior to her near-death experience. So a lot of what you've learned, we are learning as we have our meetings, and so we appreciate that and all of what you've shared. Is there anyone else that has a question for Dick? Yes, come on. Yes, come on up. Sandy wants to say something. She's coming up. We have one speaker, so we have to kind of stand here.
Hey, Richard, hi. I want to thank you so much. Had Deb not contacted you and you put me into the Speakers Bureau, I would not have met Tia Renee. I've had my first podcast, Richard, and it has gone global. I had no idea, it's been international, that my word would be so accepted and give such peace to so many people. It's something I've always kept inside myself. And because I came here and started to get braver about myself, I've gone out and it's
Can you
just,
speak closer to the microphone because I can't understand you?
oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying, Richard, thank you so much for putting me into the Speakers Bureau. I have gone from the next step now into doing a podcast with Tia Renee that has gone international. I've had over 12,000 hits and 600 positives. And comments that my words are giving so much peace to so many people. My heart is so happy for just meeting Deb for the first time, going through you to get on your Speakers Bureau, and now I have wings, and for that I am eternally grateful. Thank you, Richard.
Well, thank you for your word.
I also think that you've given us some great ideas for some of us maybe forming Strangers No More in our homes and bringing people together. I agree with you that the churches, it is a little impersonal sometimes. I find that you do have to get into small groups in churches to feel a part of a group. And so for that, I'm glad you're doing that in your area. There is someone that wants to ask a question, and I'm gonna, or make a comment. Yeah.
He's 100% correct. 100.
Okay. Gary, right? Gary is wanting me to convey that he believes you're 100% right in your comments that you've made today. And so I think every one of us appreciates and has learned something from your presentation today. Is there anyone else that would like to say something? I can convey that to him. No? Well, we so appreciate.
I would like to end this session with a period of meditation, a guided meditation. Would that be all right?
That would be wonderful. I mentioned that to them earlier, that you might lead us in a guided meditation, and I think they're ready for that.
Right.
Everybody comfortable?
This is something I put together from my study of near-death experience, from readings in books by Ray Stanford and Edgar Casey, and I want to explain it as I go through it. You might want to watch me as you don't need to close your eyes, but I want to explain what happens as we go along. First, I raise my hands over my head. my arms and I say, glory to God. That's my intention, that this meditation will be for the glory of God. Then I say, I welcome the love light into my body. And I pull my hands down so that it goes over my whole body, starting with my head and going all the way down to my feet. And without necessarily bending over, I put my palms down so that it goes down even into the earth. And I feel that I am anchoring the light in my being at this point, in the earth, in my body right now. Sometimes if I put my shoulders back, I can feel the energy going along my spine. I believe I am entering into the at-one-ment, the point of time and space in which all exists. There's no future, no past. Everything is in the now. And in this moment of at-one-ment, I express my devotion to God, the most important value in my life. Loving God, my heavenly parent, I thank you for all that you have given and continue to give for my life, for all that I've experienced and all I've learned, for all of my relationships, for my joys, for my sorrows, for my whole experience that has helped me develop and mature as your child. And as I sit in this moment of gratitude and thanksgiving to God and devotion, I can feel the energy building up in my being as if I were a battery plugged into a charger. I can envision myself being surrounded by love and light, as if I'm in a bubble of love and light. The purpose is not only for me to be filled and for me to express my devotion, but for me to express and extend this love to others. And to do that, I simply bring them to mind, because everything exists in this one moment. And so I bring to mind my children and grandchildren. I might speak their names, which adds energy to it. I bring to mind our political process and the candidates, the political parties, the earth and the earth changes that have already begun. I bring to mind SCIANDS groups around the world and speakers who are ready to tell their stories, and the people who are eager to hear them. And you can bring to mind any concern that you have. And we don't have any specific prayer or outcome for all of this because we don't know the best outcome. Instead, we commit all of this to God and God's will for the highest the highest outcome for all concerned. In the name of the Christ. Amen.
Well, thank you, Dick, for sharing that meditation with us and that process, really. We appreciate that. And is there anyone else that would like to make a comment or
Do
say
you see
anything?
here online?
Am I on there? Oh, someone does.
Please.
Nancy.
Go
Go ahead.
Nancy.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to say thank you, Dick. I'm so grateful for the things that you shared with us. And it's been such a validation of all the things that I've heard from NDEers over the years and in my own spiritual pursuits and just listening to different people that are seekers. And so it's a great validation and confirmation that I'm hearing correctly. And I so deeply appreciate your time and putting this together for us and sharing it with us. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. You're welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, if there's no other comments, we have a few minutes, that those of you that would like to stay and visit, you can do that. We're ending a little bit early, but that's okay. We can take what we've learned and process it, and I hope you leave here with more love in your heart and hope for the future and for yourselves and for others. So thank you for being here, and come back again next month. The September 29th is our meeting, and we hope to see you then. Don't forget to go to the SCIANDS conference. You can attend that online next weekend. So be sure and try to see that conference. And some of you, Serena, Sandy, some of you may one day want to be a speaker for that conference. You are speaking this time, this year? Oh, okay. Are you speaking this year? Oh, wonderful. Well, here we go. See, we have someone that's already speaking. So that's wonderful. Serena, I'm so happy to hear that. I don't know where I missed you last year. Were you at last year's conference? Wow, I missed it. There's 4 days of incredible speaking. And you don't have to just sit at your computer all day for the entire 4 days. If you miss something, you have to go somewhere. It's all recorded, and you get access to it for 90 days after the conference. So it's not like, you know, you have to be there or you have to sit there all day for 4 days. So try to get, you can call SCIANDS and get signed up, and they'll just send you a link on Thursday. And then you can take part in whichever part you want to be involved in. And now that we have Serena, our own friend of Space Ghost SCIANDS speaking, what day do you know? Sunday. Okay, but that's good to know. So Serena will be speaking Sunday. That's excellent. I'm glad to know that. So I think if you've already signed up, you can go and you can see the agenda, and you can pick out different speakers that you want to listen to. We've got a couple of speakers from Florida that Susan Geisman. I hope you'll meet her. You know her. Okay. Okay, great. Well,
We've done events together.
okay, great. We'd love to have her come and speak sometime. Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you being here. If you want to just hang around and visit, you can. We just need to be out of here by 5:45. Okay? Thank you again for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Dick. Once again, thank you.